Well, welcome to another edition of Community and Technology, looking at the global community with news, information, and resources to hopefully improve your life. We've got our special UBI edition today. That's Universal Basic Income. And as usual, we have our special UBI hosts and co-hosts, starting with Ms. Diana Blackwell. Diane is the president of Fred Samuel Houses and a very active community activist here in Harlem, New York, and a staunch promoter of UBI. Welcome, Diana.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome. And of course, Eno Schmidt is back with us again. Eno is from Basel, Switzerland. He's the co-founder of the Basic Income Initiative and the Referendum on Basic Income in Switzerland. Author of the film Basic Income, A Cultural Impulse, and he's currently at the University of Freiburg in Germany, where he's helping to set up the Freiburg Institute for Basic Income Studies. And of course, we're joined by our regular co-host, Miss Lena Marvin. Welcome back, Lena.
Hello. Yay,
and,
UBI.
Okay. And we have a special guest, Miss Audrey Clemens. Audrey, you're also from Fred Samuel Houses, are you not?
Yes, Audrey Clemens. Yes, yes.
Well, welcome to our show. Thank you for coming. So, I'm not sure where to begin. I guess I'm kind of, everyone that I know is talking about the end of the unemployment insurance that's about to happen here in the U.S. The $600 a month unemployment pandemic insurance that had been going on for quite some time, I guess since April. And I'm wondering what you guys think about it. You know, it has certainly raised the conversation level where I'm hearing folks talking about the need for a regular income throughout this whole pandemic crisis in a way that the conversation has not been as ubiquitous as it is now. And I'm wondering whether you think that's going to be a stimulation to move towards UBI. Do you think the Congress is going to approve the $600, or what's your thinking? Diana? Turn your mic on, Diana. You're muted.
Oh, sorry, so sorry.
Okay.
Okay, my thought is that, during this pandemic, we've really experienced the very lack of our human rights. If we've ever needed to identify what the human rights are, which are, food, shelter, and water. And we've never really in our time experienced the lack. So how do we get to it is the question. So if we're determining what we need to get to this, this total need, this right that we have, we're going to have to get some type of assistance. And if there's no other way to get assistance, except through, I guess you want to say unemployment, then we're not going to survive as a people, as just a human being. So we have to put something in play that's going to help us. And we're absolutely in need of some type of stimulus, whether it's unemployment or if it is a check that's coming in every so often, until we can really begin to start a true income. So I'm all for it. It shouldn't be reduced. We can't make it without it.
Mm-hmm. Lena, you look like you're contemplating that. Do you have some thoughts about where we are right now in this country on the unemployment and UBI?
Well, so $600 a month would be pretty rough because it's 600 a week right now, which is it's actually paid some of my friends more than they've made working, which is a real sign that they weren't making enough money and that they were being exploited. The question of should that stimulus continue? I think it should, and I think decreasing the amount is pretty rough right now, because part of the idea is that we don't want to flood the job market with people who are needing to eat during a pandemic. But the notion that people don't work when they're unemployed is odd to me, because often people are still working. It's just that their labor doesn't count.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, before I go to Eno, I just wanted to react to the other thing that just seems really odd to me, that folks are making potentially, I mean, this is one of the criticisms we hear from the Republicans, that some folks are making more money, $600 a week, than they are on their job. $600 a week is just $30,000. That's just barely above the poverty line of $25,000 here in this country. I mean, that to me, that's a crying shame that folks may be making more money at $600 a week than on their job. I mean, to me, that's a real indictment of what's going on in terms of the whole employment scene. What's your perspective?
Well, I think it proves that income is different from work. So there's this ideology, and it has been in the communist countries, that all people has to be employed, no matter how meaningful it is, no matter how useful it is. And because of this ideology that work, so employment is employment and work is the way you get your income. So income and work is always tied closely together. That made the economy weak. And in the capitalistic world, there is a same ideology. And this Corona crisis made clear so many points. So first, people need an income no matter what. There's no discussion about. Let's stop discussion whether people need an income or not, whether they work or not, whatever. So this is the first evidence. The second is there is enough supply for everybody with everything, even if there's a lockdown. So we have an overproduction. There's no scarcity. So we don't need this ideology that everybody has to be employed and work for their money, and that work, as Helen said, is always only those activity which is paid. We have to rethink so many things, and coronavirus is helping us to make this change in our understanding of society. So in this way, I guess, even if it's so horrible what happens, it is a push to ask yourself, what is the society we want to live in? And that it makes clear that everybody has to have a guaranteed basic income, no matter what, unconditionally, because you are living. So, and your living has costs always, because we cannot supply ourselves. We are supplied by people around us, and that means we need money. And there is enough productivity, there's enough of everything. It's just that we stick on old ideologies, and that makes the catastrophe, and that so many people are so heavily in hardship and poor, and that we have that gap and all the problems between rich and poor and all the problems we have. So in this way, I think coronavirus and the reaction of the government is a step forward, and we should think about and maintain this, that there is a stable basis, a stable floor of income for everybody, which will make the society much more resilient and giving much more feeling of one society.
Well, I'd like to welcome Ms. Polly Spain to the show. Polly is the president of the Federal Aid Housing Group and a member of Manhattan Community Board 7. He's been a tireless advocate for community-based technology for over 10 years, and for the last couple of years, a champion of the UBI as well. Welcome, Polly.
Welcome and hello to everyone. I'm glad to be here today.
Yeah. Well, you know, I just before
So many changes going on. It's ridiculous. You can't really.
you're breaking up a little bit there, Polly. But let me just interject and let our viewers and listeners know that we're listening to WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. This is Community and Technology. And today's show is focused on universal or unconditional basic income, UBI. And just before our new guest, Polly Spain, came on, we were talking about the impact of the about to expire $600 a week unemployment insurance that's been put in place since, I think, April to help folks get through the pandemic. And we were talking about the impact of the expiration, whether it should be renewed, and how that relates to UBI. So, Polly, maybe you want to chime in on that.
Yeah, and so, basically, as I was saying, there's so many changes going on so quickly, it's kind of hard to keep up. And in regard to that situation, I think that it's going to present a catastrophic problem for everyone throughout the nation, because people are struggling as it is. The dollars extra on unemployment was the safety gap, billions, okay, in order to generate pharmaceutical medicines. I mean, I don't see why we can't retain the $600 unemployment benefits that people were receiving, okay? I guess, I believe it's on the 7th, August 7th, that the Senate and Congress, but I guarantee you, if they are voting for $200 gap as opposed to what they were providing, we're going to see a lot of society upheaval, because it's not just impacting the lower class working people who are making less than minimum wage as it is, but you have a lot of middle class, families who are suffering. We have businesses going out, dying. So, I mean, right now that $600 basically is just a safety net. And I do feel that UBI, at some point will have to be a tool, as I said last session, that's going to help alleviate some of the pain and suffering, that put something in place to help families survive this pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Audrey, would you like to chime in on what's going on with the unemployment and the $600 and trying to unmute you? Audrey, can you unmute yourself? You're muted. Okay.
No, I'm just listening to what you're saying. No.
Okay.
But I have to comment.
Okay.
No, nothing to comment. I'm just listening.
Okay, well, just let us know you want to jump in there.
Yes, I will. I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Polly, one of the things that we're saying, I think this is just before you came on, that the $600, it really is just a safety net, because it might sound like a lot of money, but it really isn't. And the notion that the Republicans are throwing out there that folks can make more money on unemployment than at work is an indictment of the wages that they're making at work, if you ask me. I mean, $600
right.
a week is only $30,000. That's just $5,000 above the poverty level of $25,000. That's very little money for a family, even for an individual in this country, particularly in a big market like New York or any of the major cities where cost of living is so high. So I mean, to me, it's a real charade that the Republicans are playing against the American people, And I think you're right. If it goes away and it's not reinstated, there's going to be some backlash. But you know, you mentioning that, I'm wondering whether or not that is in some nefarious way playing into the president's hands, in that he's looking for turmoil. He is fomenting turmoil because in a really kind of perverted sense, that helps his re-election campaign to be seen as someone who is working to contain any potential turmoil. What do you guys think about that? Am I being a little paranoid in that regard?
No, I mean, because the bottom line is, let's just play that scenario out. If that's the hand that he's playing, I'll be honest with you, it's very dangerous because it can backfire. Okay, because the same people that he's sending in who are military families, they're in the same situation where their families also will be struggling as well. So I can't see somebody, you know, in that position who may have to make a decision. Do I go in with tear gas to contain, you know, civilians, okay, when my family is suffering and going through the same thing? So, you know, to me, it'll be civil unrest, period. Because when people are hungry and starving and pushed up against the wall and, you know, they don't see any way out. I mean, I heard a young lady, 21 years of age, last week on television who was at City Hall. And
Just froze there probably for a moment.
And she said, I'm 21. She said, I'm willing to die. She said, thousands of millions even are feeling the same way. So if you back people up against the wall and they don't see any way out, starving and they're homeless and there's no way to basically survive, then they're going to revert back to, you know, different ways. I mean, we're kind of seeing it now. You know, they call it crime here in New York where people are shooting, you know, but there's more to it than just this gang. You know, it's human, in the sense, human nature of frustration, okay? Not seeing any way out, you know, not having money and access to the things that they need, not having their human rights, okay? And I love what Enos is always talking about, you know, it's the human right to have, you know, enough to take care of yourself. And so again, if he plays that hand out, I truly see civil unrest throughout the United States. And I don't think it's going to be diffused by sending in the military, because people are fighting back. People have access to guns, okay? And people just say, you know what, I have nothing to lose because we're facing death anyway, you know, slowly. So, you know, you pick your poison. So I think it's going to backfire if that's the hand that he's playing as far as turmoil, you know, and causing unrest. Because now it could get to the point of no return. And I don't think we want to see society completely break down, but it's on its way because people are fed up.
Wow. Lena, I'm wondering what your perspective on this might be. You're, pardon me for saying, you're a little bit younger than the rest of us, a generation or so. But that said, I know that you have, in your family, you have a whole history of protest. And you know all about that. It's kind of in your genes, if you will. So I'm wondering what your take is on what's going on.
The federal the federal officers that aren't even being supported by Portland. Portland is trying to push them out, and they're refusing to leave. Is one of the more distressing things. When I discuss it with my father, it's one of the most distressing things he's seen. It's very concerning, especially since there's also some talk that those same federal forces are showing up in places that don't have as prominent of protests going on, but do have Democrat mayors or governors. That's very concerning because it does. Also, the fact that the federal forces that are being sent in aren't actually military, but are instead contract workers, the same that have been used in other places, that there may be some relationship between the head of the education, Betsy DeVos, sibling is in charge of it's just stuff where I look at it and I'm like, this is horrifying. I hate it. I don't disagree with anything Polly has said, except I do worry that maybe he is in favor of societal collapse, which is not something you ever want to think, hey, maybe the president of the United States of America is in favor of societal collapse because it'll allow him to hold on to power for another term. Because if you destroy enough ability for a populace to vote, you can't be voted out. But that's the kind of thing that makes me feel paranoid and crazy. So hopefully I'm wrong.
I'd be interested in your perspective as someone who lives outside of the United States, but looking in. Is it paranoid for us to think, for me to think, speak for myself, for me to think that maybe some of the resistance to the economic support is because of the president's need to feel as though he's quelling unrest, or are they not really like that way in your mind?
Well, that's difficult for me to decide from outside what's going on there as a power game. Well, I cannot say that. So I don't know enough about, and I have no clear judgment about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm hearing from different factions, basically. And I mean, I'm talking to people who are saying they want to leave New York and, move to a place upstate. They're already talking survivalist talk, to be honest with you, because they see certain signs that they feel that there's going to be more civil unrest. I can only speak for New York City, but a lot of people have this underlying fear that society will break down because right now this situation with the police, that people don't trust law enforcement throughout the country. Okay, so if there's no law enforcement, there's no structure, school system is breaking down. It's like every infrastructure in society is kind of falling apart little by little. Okay. And so, people are starting to have a feeling of, I better prepare myself to leave and go somewhere where I can survive. Basically, that's what I'm hearing. And, when you start hearing people talking like that, and these are the fears that they have, that means they don't have any trust in the government. They don't have any trust in the system anymore. And they're thinking in terms of, I have to survive and look out for my family. These are, red flags as far as I'm concerned. Okay. So, and then we still have the pandemic situation going on as well. People are afraid because they don't know. No one has control over this virus. No one knows how to control it. There is no cure right now. Okay. People are getting infected that you wouldn't think would get infected. Hospitals are overwhelmed. Medical staff is overwhelmed. I'm hearing stories from, doctors, nurses, etc., that, if there's another wave, so to speak, they don't know how they're going to make it. And then we're not prepared because no one really has a plan, put it that way. Everyone's talking, they know what the problem is, but there aren't any concrete solutions, okay? No one has a solution. So that's the problem. Everything's up in the air, everything's trial and error. And this is the world that we're living in now. Our reality is like day by day. And that's why I said there's so many changes going on that you can hardly keep up. I've been in several meetings, because I'm on committee to reopen the schools, etc. There's pre-planned. We're all talking about health and safety. So in 4 weeks, parents will have to decide whether they send their children back into the school buildings, knowing that they may, contract the virus. And if they do, is the doctors, are they prepared to handle that situation? You see, and so we have to, everybody's talking about the what if, but there's no plan for the what if, for the backup. So, that causes chaos and confusion. Then you have the situation with law enforcement. Like I said, people are not happy. They're lashing out. There's a lot of conflict going on. The Black Lives Matter movement has been hijacked by anarchists, okay? who are creating more violence and situations. So that has gotten lost, the whole message in the BLM movement been lost, because now the focus is on, okay, Seattle now focusing so much on how do we again bring society back at least where everyone's feeling safe. Okay.
Okay, let me just interrupt,
So,
Polly, and see if we can
yep.
bring the conversation back.
It's a lot to contend with at one time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
If we can kind of just circle back and see what kind of role UBI might be able to play to bring some order to the disorder. And I know that a number of mayors have been calling for it. So it's not just the stuff that's happening on the congressional level, but on the local levels across the country, we're seeing local government and mayors stepping up, saying that some sort of universal basic income is required. I know there was Mayor Tubbs out in California. I think there was a consortium not too long ago, about 7 or so mayors that put out a statement advocating universal basic income as a way to help support and sustain folks. I think they're saying not just through this pandemic, but beyond. Is that something that either you, Diana, or Eno could speak to?
Diana? You have to unmute.
Turn your mic on there.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eno. I think you can talk more on that one.
Well, yeah, very unspecific. So I understand so very well the anger of the people and how people come more and more to violence. And there are different parties. And it comes to what Pori says, it comes to a kind of civil war, even if this is not the same scale and form like it has been in history. But, well, I think we have to concentrate by all the suffering we experience and we see around us to what is the solution and what is the path of human being in the future. And I'm sure, like Polly said also, that an unconditional basic income is that necessary tool and step forward that avoids violence and war and civil unrest and suffering and all that stuff, because this enables people to come through into the society, into reality with their values, their ideals, with what their hearts want to approve, to approach, to realize. So this is the word human rights is the right word, but consider about going deeper, what that means. That is not just a sentence, it's not just a saying. That means that people are enabled by this unconditional basic income to bring down their life to earth in society. And that is what people want to do. They want to do to make the world a bit better. That's what everybody wants to do. So in which way ever. And this enables people to do that. And that enables people to act politically, to change the politics. So the power has to come more in the hands of the people than before. And the problem is that some people, because of all that corruption and all the lies we are told, some people think they need a tough leader like Trump. And that makes dictatorship behavior. And that makes it even worse. So the opposite is to bring the power to the people. And that is the American way, I guess. To give the power in the hands of the people, and don't talk about that like a blah, blah, blah intellectual nonsense, but that is give the people money. The basic income has to be given unconditional to everybody because we appreciate every human being. Everybody in our society deserves to live and to live by their own decision, how they want to create their biography. And basic income is low enough, is little enough. So that's not a huge step. That's just to make clear that the basic income, what everybody has in this or that way today, change it in an unconditional basic income for everybody. That is not much more money. That is just to change the basic for life into an unconditional appreciation of each individual. And I think that avoids social struggle, situations like civil war and all the suffering what is going around that. And you know, that is not only a power game in the United States now, which is horrible, that can lead to a big war too. Then you need an enemy abroad to unite the people in the country. Then you have the next war with Russia or whatever. So this is really dangerous. If we are blocking the path of development, which is more individual freedom, then we will have violence, and then we will have the next catastrophe. You know, the First World War was also because ideas couldn't come through, couldn't come to reality. There were so many good ideas and ideals, but the elites didn't understand that. The elites didn't respected the life situation of all those millions of people in new social circumstances. And we have digitization, we have globalization, all that stuff. The social circumstances are different than in the 50s or 60s. So the American way of life is no longer true, and the American dream is no longer true, but it has to come true again. So development is to reshape the constitution of the country in reality. Each generation new. We have to renew democracy and everything. And a basic income, unconditional basic income, is that floor, that basis, that security for everybody to engage, to act in that way you want. And maybe in particular in politics, in particular environmental questions, in particular taking care in social, in the neighborhood, taking care for those who cannot come through with their potential and their power. And that makes the gangs and the crime and all the stuff, because they can't come through to us in a meaningful relationship. They can't create the circumstances, the environment that fits to them. They can't find it. I know that. I worked in drug hospitals and with people who were addicted by drugs. I know that many of those people are very sensitive people, people who are too fine, too sensible for this very hard, tough society with all the boxes you have to jump into to be able to survive. You know, all the stupid forms from the past that we should fill full. Why I'm here on earth, not to fill full what others think is best and what my parents thought is the best. I'm here to create a new world, and that's for every human being on earth. You come down to earth to make the world a bit better, and that means different from what it was and not fit in old patterns. So, and this is unconditional basic income, you know, and that's why it is a human right, because it is really human, and it lets think about what is that human, what is it? So, you know, we have to renew so many things, and there's so much work to do in this regard. And that is an unconditional basic income that is a peacemaker, that is a protection for the next war and the next traumata, and that is help for all the traumata we have, and that is help for families, for neighborhoods. This is the basis for innovative new social enterprises, companies which are not the war everybody against everyone, but enterprises that understand that economy is our social being, is doing things for each other. So we together are doing things for each other. That is economy, you know. The other thing is robbery. Economy is our social life. Social life is not apart from that, a different thing. Economy is social life. We have to rethink so many things, you know. Profit is not a part of entrepreneurial goals. entrepreneurial goal is to do the bad things for your customer and to give a platform for biographies for your employees. So it can be different from the ideologies that we teach to fulfill. And an unconditional basic income is such a step because of the unconditionality that we awake to believe our own perception, our own awareness, our heart, our own feeling, what we really feel. And that is not this always tough and clever shit what we have to do. So this is what comes from me. And Polly can tell so many stories about those people she is working with. And I think those people are creative people. Those people are tough in their way. And those people deserve a place where they can contribute to society in a creative, good way. So enough by that story, but I think in this way, we have to focus, even if the situation becomes worse and worse, always to the good things, always to those things where we can improve the situation.
That's a great holistic explanation and connecting of the dots about what UBI is and just how it really affects all aspects of life. We're talking about UBI here on Community and Technology on WHCR 90.3 FM. And we have our special UBI panel with us, Dan Blackwell, Eno Schmidt, Polly Spain, Audrey Clemens, and of course the old steady Lena Marvin, our regular co-host here on Community Technology. You know, one of the things that I'm saying, Eno's talking about focusing on the hopeful and the positive, and I think he's absolutely right. If we get mired in all the negativity, we'll never be able to pull ourselves out of it. But one of the positive things that I'm saying is folks actually moving on, redistributing some of the money. The defund the police, although I think that's a poor terminology because that's been used against us, but reallocation of money that had been used for policing to more positive social benefit activities. And I've heard a couple people on the news, political folks asking and talking about redistributing some of the defense spending money, billions of dollars in defense that could potentially be redistributed and perhaps allocated for some of the UBI things that we're talking about. I'm wondering whether or not anyone else is seeing this trend and noticing it. Anyone?
Okay, I want to say this. When you're talking about government money, I don't believe that's where we should look for UBI to be funded from. It needs to be on some type of after-tax money, some of the profit. Because if we go into government money, then anyone who's a receiver of government money owes the government, whether it's through taxes or there's going to be a service attached to it. This is my belief. I believe that there are other means of obtaining money for UBI, but not through any type of government funding. So if we refund, if we reallocate, or whatever you would like to term it, if it comes from the government, we will, and they give it to us, we owe the government back. So I can't agree with that method.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with the idea that if one receives things from the government that they then owe the government, because it seems like the government is the apparatus that could tax corporate profit to fund UBI, but that's kind of a different, just a different framework. One of the concerns about or something that refutes the idea that there is push to defund, reallocate various policing and military budgets. One of the big concerns about the current COVID aid bill that's going through is it has about $21 billion for defense kind of tucked into it. So not enough money for testing, but billions for defense. So I do have kind of a harder time looking at like the good in this, because I'm like, no, I'm not, while there is an echo of people, of individuals saying, these things need to change, and there is a cry to abolish the police, defund the police. I'm fond of replace the police, because that does imply that something else has to come in their stead. But I'm not seeing that echoing in legislation yet, and that's kind of a bummer.
Holly, would you want to weigh in on that one?
Well, it's interesting. Today, the 4 tech giants, there was an article online that they're going before Congress, right? You have the head of, you have Jeff Bezos, you have the head of Google, Apple, and Facebook, right? So they have to testify, because of monopolizing the tech industry, so to speak. So I've not had this conversation with Diane. One of the things I would like to see is a trust fund, a UBI trust fund set up where these 4 tech giants who are very wealthy would have to donate a percentage of their revenue every year, okay, to this fund. And then this way they get their write-off, and then the UBI fund could definitely gain interest and dividends. So one of the things that I would like to see, is a UBI conference set up, because I feel that more people, and I'm talking about everyday people, need to be able to tap into this dialogue that we're having. One of the things that I would like to see is a curriculum, made up so that this way, I'm an educator, so I feel that it's important to put the information out there so that more people are aware of, they understand what it is, that we can get the everyday person to say, you know what, go to the elected officials. This is what I want. This is what we need now. Because really the stimulus package, the conversation should be, how do we introduce GBI, okay? Shouldn't be talking stimulus package. We need to change the language and the dialogue so that people understand that there is an alternative to what we're used to. So one of the things, I'm just putting it out there for me, I would like to see a conference, because I just was on a conference with freelancers, right? And that's a 500,000 member union. And everybody on that conference is into doing what Eno and everyone's talking about, using their innate abilities, their creativities. They're breaking away from the old system of being a corporate slave, okay? So I like to have a UBI panel conference set up and invite those 500,000 members, because they would understand that and start there. And they're voters. These are people who vote, okay? So I feel that's the starting point, that we need to talk to the people who are in charge right now and get them to buy into this. And in this way, we can make it a reality instead of just talking about, be about it, because I'm about action, So as far as I'm concerned, those 4 tech giants who are going before Congress now, they should be the ones to foot the bill to get the UBI started, because they're making money off we the people, right? Everybody uses technology, everybody uses that service, so they need to give back to society. And that's the best way that I feel to go at it right now. Because most of the people that are in freelancers, the 500,000 that I've seen there, they're using technology to launch their businesses, their enterprises. So I feel that the tech giants should support the people. And that's the end of my statement and my comment. But I'm very serious. I would like for all of us here to think in terms of how we can set up a UBI conference and reach out to that community.
Oh, I like that, Holly. I like that. I like that. Powerful.
Okay.
Could you get behind something
Any
like
office?
that?
If
Yeah,
not, I'll just go ahead with it.
That's very good. No, that's right, Polly. Let's do it. Let's make it. Let's make such a
Let's make it
conference.
happen.
Yeah. Well, whatever we can do, Spring University, myself and Doug, we're behind the Polly. So
Okay.
maybe we need a strategic plan to to
Yes.
mobilize resources and people. So maybe that's something we can think about offline,
Yeah.
and figure out
Mhm.
how to make it happen.
Should there be
Yeah. Okay.
a specific target? So to say the conference is a conference about UBI and the future and targeted to implement a basic income in Harlem? Should it be such a
That's a start.
concrete goal?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, to start, because we can talk a lot about financing, for example, so just one idea to spread that a government, a democratic government, does not have any money if it is democratic. Only corrupt dictators have money. So the money the government has is money from the people, and the government is a trustees community to do the good things we ordered the government to do, and therefore we paid for the government. So this is called taxes. So there's a lot to say about, but the idea that the tech giants who are in favor for a basic income, mostly, the majority of them knows about the development of automation and is in favor for an unconditional basic income, whether this is Facebook or this is Elon Musk or many other people in Silicon Valley. And maybe they could fund the basic income, start launching a basic income in Harlem, not as a test program. So we have had tests enough everywhere.
Right.
We don't need any more tests. There are these mayors that is great in the States. So around Michael Tubbs from Stockton, and there are a lot others. And I know there are many other mayors who want to implement basic income. But I guess this is not a pilot project. This is just to start it. And in that way, I agree totally with Diane to say, look, we don't need the government to do the good things. We don't need to wait our whole life staying in front of the red light and waiting that it becomes green. No, we do that. So we implement the basic income. We are the state, the fork is the state, we are the state. And yeah, therefore, that's a question to you, but I think it could be interesting to have a conference and to have this specific determined goal, implementing basic income on a low level first, financed by tech giants in Harlem. So that could be connected. I don't know.
That
What
sounds
do you think
great.
about it?
Yeah. It's
I
doable.
like the targeted aspect of that. Right, Rob Palia is targeted, and it's it's maybe something that is a realistic short-term goal to get that started. And
right.
And if we can make it happen in Harlem, we can make it happen in other communities.
Right. And
Yeah.
even if it's,
I mean, I would like to see it because basically, public housing, as we know, there's over 400, almost a 500,000 families that live in public housing, and that's the community right now that's struggling economically. So that's a great focus group to start UBI with here. I know that Facebook, has spoken about UBI as well. So I think this is an opportune time right now to introduce it and launch it and make it happen.
yeah, even if it's a small number, little number of people, even if it's very low and only a few, then it's a starting point. With the idea that this is not a pilot project, you cannot make a pilot project a test of, let's say, Christianity. Let's test it if it works, or Buddhism. Let's test it. Well, what kind of idea is it? You understand the idea of an unconditional basic income, and then everything is clear. You don't. And people in companies always say, if those people in the company if some people don't understand the idea, then they come and say, oh, we have to test it, because they don't understand the idea. If you understand the idea, you don't need to test it, you do it. Right. And then in reality, you can test it, and you can change it, and you can modify it. And also life is not over when we implemented the basic income. We can work on it, we can create it differently, and so on and so on. But we have to start. All this idea of testing, for me, I know it's important for the public awareness, but in real, honestly, it's It's nonsense to test it. What should you test? How people behave when they are free? Well,
I like that, Leon. Let's do it. Get about the test. Let's do it. So, one of the things
Exactly. Yeah.
maybe offline, this group can get together and do a virtual conference and start to talk about some of the planning. Polly, I'm going to ask, maybe that's something that
Yes, of course,
Yeah.
definitely. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
All right. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. That's where I'm at.
that's a good,
Time
that's
to
a good
launch
pick.
it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Helen, how can you contribute? You're in Mississippi, aren't you?
Missouri.
Missouri.
Who knows?
Sorry. Sorry.
I can certainly help organize all sorts of information in my professional capacity as a librarian.
Oh, that's great. That's
And
what
we need that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, okay,
Mhm.
folks.
Audrey.
This has been really
And
good.
Audrey, you're so quiet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Audrey, you knows
Right,
everything.
Audrey.
You didn't talk, you know everything. You have to
Turn the mic
unmute.
on, Audrey, so we can hear you.
Unmute.
Unmute.
Unmute your mic,
Oh,
Audrey.
boy.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, I was just listening to everybody, and like I'm saying, my comment is, everything what you were saying, what everybody was saying, I agree with them. And like I'm saying, everybody's just having a lot of problems that's going on in this, what's all going on now. So we have to do something about it. And like they were saying, testing everything, what's all that about by testing? So
Let's do
I
it.
really don't have too much to say. I was just listening because I'm just coming up on, coming in the conversation.
That's good. That's good.
You did good. You
Oh,
did
okay. Any
I just hope everything would get better and
Yeah.
still, all this, like I'm saying, what's going on. I just hope it get better. But we just have to pray. And what else could we do?
But we can
I
work
mean,
at
we don't want
making it
people
better.
But we're
panicking.
gonna-
That's what they're doing. We need more money.
Mhm.
And like I'm saying, what Trump saying, he's going to send another statement, another checks out. But a lot of people that still might not help them at all. Now he's going to cut some if you're unemployed. If you get 600, you get 200. So it's a lot. It's going through a lot of stuff now. And plus they have children too. So
Okay.
something has to give. We got to get together and do
Something's gotta be
something
done.
about it.
Okay.
Well, I like Polly's proposal for action, and I think that's something we should follow up on. And we're just about out of time, but let's go around and get any final comments from folks. Diana?
Well, I just want to say this was a great meeting. I believe we've gone from, teaching to an action mode, and I'm excited about it. Can't wait.
Lena?
I look forward to the next steps.
Yeah. Eno?
Helen, in Springfield, Missouri, I was invited by a pastor and made a sermon in his church about unconditional basic income. So there are people in Missouri too for an unconditional basic income, like this pastor in Springfield, Missouri. Well, I think I like the idea to have this symbol Harlem. So because my origin is painting, I'm coming from the arts, and therefore I can imagine that this is a good picture, this is a good image, this is a good symbol. There's a lot behind. You can create a narrative, a story about that this is Harlem in New York, and this is a place where the people start to come up with an unconditional basic income. Well, that's not made by some, let's say, some rich people who have a good idea that they make a test with people with an unconditional basic income. But no, this is from the people. This is from the bottom up, and this is Harlem, and this is New York. And so I think it can be a good movie. It can be a good reality. it can have some importance. And at the end, you know, the most important thing is it will help those people who are involved. And every individual and every second of your life is absolutely important.
Well, thank you. Polly, you've got the last word.
Action.
Okay. Now you're talking. Now you're talking.
I got
Okay,
it.
Well, thank you all. Well, this has been Community and Technology with Diana Blackwell, Polly Spain, Lena Marvin, Eno Schmidt, and Audrey Clements, and your host, Stu Reed. Thanks for tuning in. You've been listening to WHCR 90.3 FM. See you next week.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, bye-bye. Oh my goodness, my battery's down. Oh.